Good afternoon. I'm Chief John Carmichael of the Walpole Police Department. Today is November 15th, 2016. And before we get into, and I just want to welcome you to Walpole Five-0. Before we get into some of the log entries this past week, I'd like to just mention a few things before we get going. First of all, I just want to thank the residents of Walpole for their initiative in turning down Question 4, which would legalize marijuana in Massachusetts and commercialize it, bring a new commercial industry into Massachusetts. I know that it passed statewide, but Walpole did the right decision, I think, in making sure that we weren't going to allow this to happen. I have to give a lot of credit to the Walpole Alcohol and Drug Coalition because we had a lot of people from the schools and public health and public safety and different entities that we have in town that really got the word out there as to what this was going to do and what the impact of commercializing marijuana in Massachusetts could mean. And I just want to thank them for their hard work and trying to make sure that we defeated this. Unfortunately, it didn't go our way. In the next few months, the Walpole Police Department, as well as the Alcohol and Drug Coalition, will be very vocal in taking the next steps and how we're going to deal with this as a community. So just want to say thank you very much on that. A few things I want to mention also is just a couple of our programs. Security checks. When people go away in Walpole, we can fill out going away forms and you can submit those to the police department. Say if you're going away for a week on vacation and you would like the police department to check on your home, we will do that. Just fill out the form, submit that to the Walpole Police Department. We have them online as well as in the lobby. And our officers will check on that on your home while you're gone. They do an amazing job at it, and I really have to give them credit because there's so many that we get, the officers on the 4 to 12 shift and the midnight shift especially, do an amazing job making sure your homes are kept secure and safe while you're away, so they have that peace of mind. So thank the officers for that, and feel free to submit those if you go away. Community policing, one of the big log entries we'll see a lot of times in our log is community policing initiatives, as well as what we call walk and talks, where police officers will stop their patrol car, they'll get out and they'll engage the community in various ways. That might be at a school, that might be at a business, could be at the Walpole Mall, but they're out and they're about and they get out there and try and talk to the community and the citizens out there to find out what problems that they're having or any concerns that they might have. And then they bring those back to the department and we talk about things and we use those in our efforts to how we're going to police in the community. So I thank our officers so much for that as well. Some of our community policing initiatives, we have our positive tickets program, which has been very successful. This is one of the positive tickets. And this one here was donated by, this is the Walpole Police Association, our Walpole Police Union, Local 115. They donated these to the department. These are actually movie pass ones. And what we do is when the police officers catch a kid in the community doing things that are right, they will stop that child and they will issue them a positive ticket. And it's a really good icebreaker so that the officers can stop and engage kids and have a good positive interaction. Because we know that a lot of times when somebody has to deal with the police, it's not always a positive encounter. It might be that, somebody was speeding and it's a traffic stop, or it might be a family dispute, or whatever it might be. A lot of times we're responding to something, a call for service, and it's not always a happy time for people. And the police officers, I think, do a good job of trying to make that as positive as they can. But the positive tickets program has been very successful, and we'd love to continue to do that. One of the other things is our foam cars. If you haven't seen these around, we've gone through probably 1,000 of these already, but we got these little foam cars that the officers love to take out in their cruises with them. And when they see kids in different settings, they'll stop them and they'll issue them these foam cars, and they've been a great hit. So appreciate the officers' efforts out there in giving those out. But this one's mine, and I'm keeping it from my desk, so hands off. Next thing, so let's go over some of the entries from this past week. First thing is a drug overdose that occurred up at a dentist's office up on Route 1. And this individual walked into the dentist's office showing signs that he was impaired, and the dentist actually questioned him. The individual had stated that he smoked marijuana prior to going to the dentist. However, as the individual was sitting there, they kind of nodded off and kind of passed out in the seat. So they called 911 and the police responded. The individual ended up coming to and ran out of the mall, so ran out into the parking lot. He was then encountered by Officer Benner and Officer Vinciguerra, who stopped him and ended up placing him in protective custody and bringing him to Norwood Hospital to get evaluated and to get detoxed. Now that's a new thing that years ago we weren't able to do that. A new statute came up this year through Governor Baker called 111E, which means an incapacitated person can be placed into protective custody if they're under the influence of drugs. And prior to this year, the police weren't able to do that. We could place somebody in protective custody for alcohol, but we could not do it for drugs. But in this case, if the person's unconscious or they need medical attention, they could suffer physical harm or property damage. If they're disorderly, the police can take that person and not incarcerate them and bring them to a jail setting, but get them to a detox, bring them to a hospital, which is basically an open door for us to bring them there and get them to be able to detox off this drug. Now in this case, this individual was under the influence of opiates and could have wandered off and ultimately overdosed at some point. And one way or another, we may have had to deal with them. But prevention-wise, this is a great tool for law enforcement because we were able to get him to the hospital and make sure that something like that didn't happen. He didn't overdose later on. So great job by Officer Benner and Vinciguerra. Officer Giblin made a warrant arrest out on Route 1. Officer Giblin's one of our newest officers, as well as Officer Vinciguerra. But he stopped a motor vehicle out on Route 1 in the area of 550, and during his encounter with the operator, he discovered that that person had a warrant out for their arrest out of Waltham, and he placed them under arrest and brought them to the police station. The individual was from Wrentham, Mass. Officer Parlon, Powers, and Bieberman responded to a trespassing and unwanted persons call. This occurred on School Street, and the caller reported that two males were on her property and they were drinking and smoking cigarettes. And kind of a quality of life issue. The officers went down there. They spoke to each of these individuals, determined that they weren't inebriated to the point that they were impaired or had to be placed in protective custody, and they sent them on their way. But kind of just a quality of life issue that, these things, good job on the resident in reporting this and getting these guys to move along out of the neighborhood. Suspicious activity report. This occurred on Main Street. The caller said that he received a threatening letter on his car, and so he requested an officer go down there and speak to them. Basically, the letter said you better watch your back. So not very specific as to what this was referring to. The victim did not know who would have thought to do this or who would threaten him, but the officers went down there and they did and are still viewing some of the surveillance video at Stop and Shop to see if they can determine who this person was, maybe identify them and speak to them. Car brakes. We talked about car brakes last week, and car brakes have continued on into this past week. However, the location has changed. Most of them last week were mostly situated in North Walpole. This past week, more East Walpole, so Meadow Ridge, Rustic Road area. Some have even gone over the line into Norwood. But we received a 911 call the other night. Caller reported seeing a person attempted to break into vehicles on their street, and officers responded. They set up a perimeter. They called for a canine assistance from Westwood PD, and they were able to establish a track, but that basically led to a dead end, and officers weren't able to locate this individual that night. Again, some of these vehicles are left unsecure, so make sure that you lock your vehicles up, keep any valuables and things of value out of eyesight, out of plain view, so that people don't smash into the car, break a window, or even just open doors and take a wallet or credit cards or any other belongings like that. Will keep a real good check out there during the night. Some of them we think that have happened early morning hours, as early as like 3 o'clock in the morning. So please continue to call in if you see or suspect suspicious activity. Officer Moriarty. Also, Bethany updating warrant files. This is just kind of one of those things where people don't realize we do, but Officer Bethany is our she's on our warrant apprehension team, and she has to update all of our warrants from the court, arrest warrants that either defaults or capious warrants, or where the fines haven't been paid. And she updates this routinely so that the officers have a good understanding of how many warrants are out there in Walpole at a specific time, and the addresses of these individuals, pictures of these individuals, so that they can be vigilant in clearing up warrants for the court. Sometimes we'll even go and do warrant sweeps where we have multiple people that have warrants, and we'll go out and try and locate those individuals and bring them before the court so that they can clear up that warrant. At any given time, Walpole probably has between 1,000 and 1,200 arrest warrants at a time, sometimes more. It fluctuates, but either people miss their court date or they just default on purpose. Those warrants end up being issued, and we make a good faith effort to try and locate them on the street and bring them to court. The disturbance, store employee reported an argument outside between two male individuals. Just one of those, another kind of quality of life issue where two people were arguing over something, and the officer responded and spoke to both individuals and restored the peace of that neighborhood. Report of an underage drinking party. This occurred up off of Old Post Road the other night on November 10th. This one's kind of upsetting, but we, upon arrival, found out that the girl that was hosting the party was supposed to be living at another home, but that the person who owns the home is not there currently, but went to this house, invited a bunch of 13-year-olds to the house to kind of hang out, and at some point there was some alcohol introduced to these kids, and some of them had been consuming alcohol. Even vodka was located at the scene. So the officers did a great job with this. In this case, they called all the parents. The parents came up, were very cooperative in how the officers dealt with this, and picked up their children. Basically, the parents were given a briefing as to what happened, and hopefully we'll be able to try and deal with this situation with the homeowners that live there in the near future. Report of an erratic operator. Again, this was similar to kind of last week. Another citizen coming forward where they're seeing impaired operation. They're seeing erratic behavior where the cars are weaving back and forth, or speeding, slowing down, that kind of thing. Erratic enough to cause them to call the police. They did so. The officers were able to locate that vehicle, and they were able to arrest the operator for OUI liquor, negligent operation of a motor vehicle, and marked lanes violations. So again, the police can't be very effective unless the citizens in the community work with us. And when somebody sees something like that, it's very easy to say, well, you know what, maybe it's nothing. But in this case, they see this operation, they see this behavior, they call the police, and we removed a drunk driver from the street. And you never know what the outcome of that could have been, so we appreciate that always when people come forward and report things like that. Another overdose we had at a motel. The manager went there after there was an unpaid bill. When he got there, he found the individual was highly intoxicated. When the police officers responded, they also found out that the individual consumed some benzodiazepines, and I believe it was lorazepam or something of that nature. Class C substance, mixed that in with the alcohol, became highly impaired, and to the point where she was overdosing. Officer Dolan was one of the officers that went up there and was able to transport her to the hospital and get her some help. So great job by Officer Dolan on that one. Reporting party, damage done to their fence overnight. This occurred down in South Walpole, and very likely due to the Patriots event that was held this past weekend, and fans, either traveling to or from the stadium had caused some damage to this victim's fence. And we are very vigilant with this. We know very well how the stadium can impact the quality of life for South Walpole residents. Traffic, people urinating in driveways, people drinking in public, people parking where they shouldn't be parking. We certainly understand that. We've been dealing with it for for years, and we will continue to. But you know, this is just one of those impacts that by having the stadium there and more people situated down in South Walpole, that this individual's fence was damaged, and something that, you know, we will continue to keep a good eye on down in South Walpole, especially during stadium events. This was another arrest. This was by Officer Toland, Officer Benner, and Vince Aguirre. Individual was stopped by unmarked unit. Detective Toland stopped this vehicle for marked lanes violations. He found out that the operator was unlicensed, but also that he provided a false name. Individuals sometimes will provide us with several aliases. You know, the officers will be trying to run them through the database when we can't seem to make a link to this individual, and that's what happened in this case. Gave some false information, and ultimately, you know, we're going to find out who you are. We was arrested on the scene, brought back to the station, fingerprinted, photographed, and ultimately we're able to identify him. But in this case, the officer charged him with that for providing that false name to the police officer on scene. Received a call reporting a past larceny. Officer Maganello took a report on that one. Didn't have the actual details on that one. But then this morning, kind of interesting, on 11/15/2016, there was a report of graffiti on the bridge, and this is the bridge located on Common Street, going towards the high school, and it made some comments about the Trump campaign. And some basically like an anti-Trump tagging on that bridge, and Officer Wilmot responded to that. He took a report, and then he contacted the DPW so that they could remove that graffiti. We don't have any suspects in mind on this, but this has been kind of an ongoing issue throughout the campaign, where we had multiple situations involving Trump signs or stealing Trump signs, or in this case, now we have kicked it up a level to graffiti on the bridge and tagging a bridge with anti-Trump rhetoric. So I don't see that probably ending anytime soon. I'm sure that that's something that, you know, it seems to be the trend right now, but hopefully not. But that's all I have for today. I just want to say thank you very much for watching Walpole 5-0, and I'm Chief John Carmichael. And thank you very much for having me.